What's going on, guys? I will be back here in about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Sorry I'm late. I had to take care of some very important things. Let me go ahead and get this situated. But I will be back in about 2 minutes. Kingdom Diplomat. All right, guys, about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. All right, all right. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Man, I'm sorry I'm late again, guys. I had to take care of something extremely important. But thank you for hopping on with me. Let me see if I can get that. Can y'all see that? Big question mark. Big question mark. We always have questions, don't we? I know I do, right? Everybody has questions. Lots of questions. So, welcome to Kingdom Diplomat Podcast. This is episode 54. I don't have it in front of me, but I think that's correct. So, welcome, guys. Hope you guys had a great Tuesday. I hope you didn't waste any time. I hope you did not take time for granted. What up, Tough? I hope you guys have a plan, for the upcoming week as far as doing things that you need to get done, from very important versus urgent. I hope you guys in the past, this is for people who've been following me for quite some time. Love you guys. Love you, my peeps. That's what we used to say up top. My peeps, where my peeps at? But anyway, I hope you guys actually have your dream book written down, or you can say your life book written down into detail. It doesn't matter. I got a lot of things that I'm hoping you guys are actually doing and taking action, because as you already know, that we can't get back yesterday, right? Let alone 1 second ago, 10 seconds ago. So I'm always thinking about, every time I think about time elapsing, that means we're on the clock. But many people, if not most, don't even know what we're on the clock for. Unfortunately, in Western world, we think we're on the clock, and this is overall. We think we're on the clock, trying to chase a title, trying to chase, money that doesn't exist, because, many people know that money does not exist. It's an idea, right? When you go through history, there was certain things called money, but natural resources are real. That's just a side note. But yeah, so that's just things that I think about in between. It's amazing what you can, when you ask yourself what, who, why, where, how, when there's just not a lot of noise. And one of the things I like about the older movies, maybe kind of date myself, doesn't matter what age you are, but it's something to say about having that you time, right? That me time, where there's no social media, there's no TV, there's TV's not even in the room, right? And you're just having, whether just be opening a book, or just meditating, thinking about your future, right? Thinking about where do you want to go, what you want your family to be like, no matter where it's at, no matter what kind of maybe fire you're walking through. Maybe you're walking on some coals right now, because life be life, and right. And, things do happen, and it's not so much of what happens to us, it's how we respond to what happens to us. It has to do with attitude. So I'm not going to be in here long, but it seems like every time I say that, I'm on here a little bit longer than I anticipate. So I know you were wondering why I got that question mark there, because that's the most important symbol, I believe, for us, and some of the things I found out in cracking open some of the potential that I have in myself. And believe you me, I'm nowhere near. You haven't seen the true me. I can promise you that, and I know I haven't seen the true you. But yes, indeed. What's going on, Foxy fans? Hope you guys are doing well. Um, G Gordy Lover, what's up, yo? Appreciate you guys, and yes, and I like doing this also too. Let me back up here. So if this is your first time, please go ahead and subscribe. I have a whole library of other topics, talking about you. This channel is about empowering you, and some of the things I learned about being when I was mentored by some millionaires and multimillionaires for about 15 years, helped run a business, and springing from that, and this is why in corporate America, but springing from that, I remember, like I said before last week, my first job when I was, actually it wasn't a job, it was a contracting gig I had as a paper boy, right? So I was my own boss, but I contracted with the city to sell their newspapers, right? So, and I think if I remember correctly, that was like $2 an hour or something plus tips or whatever to doing the project last year, finishing up a project that I did nationally with some companies and a law firm, and been able to make, how can I put this in perspective? I think they said the average household income is around 50,000 overall, maybe a little bit less than that. So making two times that, almost two and a half times that, in a little bit more than 30 days, So, that didn't happen overnight. It happened by changing my thinking, right? And that's how it can happen with you, okay? Now I know I got what, 135, 38, something like that subscribers. I'm not worried about that. What I'm looking at mainly is that it's the principle, right? So if you've been following me from the first episode all the way up until now, or this is your first episode, please don't forget to subscribe and like, because obviously the algorithm, some things I may say on here are not kosher. They may not be politically correct, right? Things that they don't want you to know, that you won't learn in college, you won't learn in high school, you won't learn in your corporate job, you won't learn maybe, at the cookout, family cookout, friend cookout. I've I'm going to divulge some things in here like I have previously, some of the stuff that I've learned from these guys. Now, money isn't everything, but neither is being poor, right? So I just trip me out with those people. I found out when I didn't have any money, as they would say, I actually tend to talk about it a lot more. But the more money you have and you start to realize that it's all about ideas and helping out other people, right? Growing those ideas, getting the right knowledge, getting the right understanding, and getting the right wisdom, which is action, on an idea, or whether you do it by yourself, whether you're working with a team of people, um, no matter what, you find out it's so much. It's not even about money. Money's at the bottom, right? So that's what I've learned through this journey over the last 25 years that went by really, really fast. And so I'm going to divulge some of those laws, some of those secrets, right? Secrets mean like keys. Keys give you access, keys give you power, keys give you control, right? Everybody's looking for control, everybody's looking for power, the ability to control their circumstances. I'm not talking about people who want to do, bad and evil things. I'm talking about people who want to control their circumstances. If they're sick, they want to get well, right? If they're poor or broke, they want to have some money, right? I will tell you, here's a side note. What if you focus on money, money will run from you. Okay, there was a Alkebulan king. Actually, he's the most. Some people may say African, but their actual name is Alkebulan, and a king named Solomon, who said about 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. Let me turn this down. He said about 4,000 or 5,000 years ago that he was talking about if you chase after money, money will run from you, right? So that's a law, okay? And if one thing you remember out of everything that I'm about to say, and I've said before, is that everything that I'm telling you is not my opinion, it's law-based. I don't like giving my opinion, right? Because I am an ambassador of success. Okay, everything is law based. Everything is predictable, right? It's very, very simple. If somebody starts smoking when they're 10 years old or drinking when they're 10 years old, the chances of them getting cancer, right, along with other things that they're doing, stress, foods, toxins in water, air, all that stuff like that, the chances of them getting cancer or some type of sickness or disease is very, very high, right? By the time they get 20, 30, or 40, okay? But I do know if you don't smoke, if you don't drink, right, at least along that line in that area, your chances, decrease dramatically, right? Now, that's just kind of a general statement, right? Another example I can give you, if let's say you drive a Toyota or something like that, right, or whatever brand that you drive, right? That manufacturer has given you a manual, right, and and most guys don't look at the manual anyway. But anyway, unless they do it as a profession for a mechanic, right? But anyway, or women. So but in there, I can promise you it talks about what type of gas or diesel to put in that automobile, right? And if you put something that the manufacturer did not prescribe, then I guarantee you, if you keep when you keep doing that over and over again, as you already know this, it's you don't have to be a prophet or give a premonition. You already know that law is being broken, you know, to provide energy for that car, and the car will break down. You can't put in milk, you can't put in orange juice, you can't put in coffee, you can't put in whatever else you can think of, right? You have to put that specific gasoline or diesel that the manufacturer said to put in that vehicle, right? Okay. All right, so let's get into this. Why did I put that question mark up there, guys? All right, here's why. So I'm gonna get really, really practical here. Okay, here's a law that Alkebulan king, and by the way, he's the richest king. And in today's dollars, I don't know the exact amount, but he'll be minimum a trillionaire. I remember it even talked about one of this Jewish prophets long ago was saying that he he got to be so wealthy because of his wisdom. Follow me now. That he had a mountain. He had mountains of silver, right? Mountains of silver. Now I'm not talking about like silver that we have today, but as you already know, silver, I think it's probably around $80 an ounce, right? Well, it's, the market's being suppressed, okay? But back then, silver probably was worth a lot more, and I'm pretty, and don't relax, silver's gonna go back up, but that's a whole nother topic in itself. But he had mountains of silver. So I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, man. So he's counting all this other treasures and things that these other kings and queens are bringing him because of his wisdom. Um, and he's like, put that trash over there. So I just want to kind of give you a perspective. All right. So he said in his writings that you are what you basically think you are. I'll put it like this. He said, as a man thinks, man meaning the species called mankind, right? Male plus female equals mankind. Mankind comes in two models, male and female, right? Toyota, Honda, take your pick, okay? Okay, I go a little bit higher, Mercedes or Lexus, okay? If that makes you feel better, okay? McLaren or Maybach, right? So you get what I'm trying to say. Now, he said, as a man thinketh or thinks in his mind, so is he or so is she. Okay. Like I said before, he's talking about the species called mankind. So that is a law. Okay. Now, think about it. As I said before, we're born to our dad and mom, right? The co creators of us. And we assimilate that environment. We take in information, right? You can research this. This is public knowledge. Our brain is a super duper computer, right? Put in the chat box, computer, will you? Computer. So our brain is a super duper galactic, amazing, magnificent, highly complex computer, right? That does 20,000 trillion calculations a second. It's amazing. Okay. The more you read about what you have between your ears, it just blows your mind, right? Okay. And how to use it. Okay. So that's just actually, I'm alluding to that, but that's some of the things that I've learned how to use it positively, right? Not to destroy other people, but to help myself and to help other people, right? Because that's true legacy. You see, people who steal, lie, cheat, murder, and destroy, you know what they have to do? They have to control history to make themselves seem like they did something, right? But it was actually the opposite. But that's a whole nother topic in itself. Man, I don't know where that came from. Actually, I do know where that came from. So let's start here, okay? Here's one of the books that I like right here. Okay, you see that? The Magic of Thinking Big. You should write that down. Okay, The Magic of Thinking Big. So let me help you out there, Foxy. You said you don't understand. Let's do it like this. Let's say you were to eat fast food. Most people understand and know that fast food overall is not good for you, right? There's a lot of documentaries on that, right? We put a lot of advertisements out there about no MSG, no this, no that, stay away from this, stay away from that. And you constantly have to monitor your food intake because you are what you eat, right? But let's just say you went to a fast food restaurant, take your pick, McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, whatever, 3 times a day, and you did that for 30 days, right? Now, whatever weight you are, don't put it in the chat box, but just think whatever your weight is, or not approximately, but maybe just give a guess. And if you did that for 30 days, think about where you'll end up being. Think about how your blood flow would be. Think about how your cognitive ability would be. Think about how your short-term, long-term memory would be. Think about how your response time would be. Think about how sleepy you would be, right? Where do you think you're going to end up? Maybe you're 150 pounds. In 30 days, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Depends on how big those meals are, right? But I can assure you, you'll be in worser health than the previous 30 days. I'm sure you would agree. I'm sure 100% of people would agree with me on that. It's not overall the best choice, right? Now, if you're homeless and you only got $10, that's all you got, it's better than nothing, right? It's better than eating acorns or trying to chew on rocks. You know, that's not going to work, right? Or tree bark. It's not designed for that, right? Just trying to make a funny, as I would call it. But anyway, so hopefully that gives you some insight as far as that example, Foxy. So the same way you apply that principle with eating, apply that to your mind. Okay, think about the music that you're listening to. What are the words of that music? Because words, they're containers of life and death, right? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. As a matter of fact, that's what that Alkebulan Prince King Solomon said 4 or 5 thousand years ago. And that's another law. Okay, so I always want to try to work on you while I'm working on me. See if we can figure that one out. Okay. All right. So check this out. Okay. So the magic of thinking big, you should order that. I think it's like 12, $15. Stop being cheap and get it. This works on this right here. The most important land is between your ears. Okay. And how you see yourself. Okay. So let me read something to you. Okay. Let's see. Let's start. I'm gonna start right here. Okay. Okay. Thinking does make it so. Okay. Remember what I said before with King Solomon, what he said, as a man thinks in his mind, so is he or she. Right. In other words, whatever you congest, whether you ingest, not congest, but ingest, whether you put through your five senses, specifically your eye gates and your ear gates, right? And one of the things I'm going to talk about here very shortly is the law of repetition. There's something to be said about the law of repetition. Now, practice doesn't make it perfect, but you have to have the right practice to make the right perfect, right? So it could be a good way or a right way of dribbling the ball, or close to a right way, right? Maybe a standard or some sort. It could be a right way to hold this, a right way to do that, or something like that or another. Um, so you get what I'm saying, guys. If not, just listen to this over and over and over again. Pick up this book. I don't get paid by this author. Actually, I think he's passed on. But this was initially done back in the 1950s. But one thing about laws, they work for any and everybody, and they will never decrease or increase in value. They always work when you work the right law. Okay. There's laws in relationships, laws in finances, there's laws with people, there's laws in every area of life. Okay. So it says that thinking does make it so. Okay. Others see in us what we see in ourselves. We receive the kind of treatment we think we deserve. Thinking does make it so. Let me read this. The fellow who thinks he is inferior, regardless of what his real qualifications may be, is inferior, right? For thinking regulates action. Let me say that again. Thinking regulates action. If a man feels inferior, or she, or a woman, she acts that way. No veneer or cover up or bluff will hide the basic feeling for long. The person or the man, woman, or child who feels he or she isn't important isn't. Okay. On the other side, a fellow who really thinks he is equal to the task is. Is another word of saying equal. Okay. To be important, you must think you're important. Really think so. Then others will think so too. Okay, here's that logic. How you think determines how you act. Okay. How you act in turns determines how others react. Okay. That's what I wanted to get to. Okay. That's chapter 6. Okay. Chapter 6. This book right here will put some money in your pocket. Why? Because money follows adding value. How do you add value? Change the way you think in a positive way. You'll add value to you, and money will follow that. Okay. Remember, if you chase money, money will run from you. Okay. It's not attracted by, it's actually repelled by negative words, negative ideas about a person. Okay. Poverty has nothing to do with money. Okay. Poverty has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with how you think, right? Your strategy, your plan, all that type of stuff. Okay. Now, so hopefully that was enough right there. Now, let's get into something else along that line. I want to read to you the law of repulsion. Okay. The law of repulsion. What are you trying to do, Tyke? I'm trying to help you to empower yourself. You said you wanted power. We all want power. I desire power. Power to add value to myself, to increase my overall well-being, not just for me, but for my family, my friends, my neighbors, my community, right? Country, and so on and so forth, right? So all of us, no matter who we are, have a gift or gifts, and we all have a vision that was implanted in us, right? Kind of like a seed, right? A seed has operates through different laws, and when you put the seed in the right environment, it automatically grows, right? It has to have the chlorophyll from the sun, has to have the moisture, the ground has to be right, temperature, everything, right? But you just have to plant it and you just walk away, right? It's a law, okay? Called the law of sowing and reaping, right? Hopefully you guys are writing this down. You should write that down. The law of sowing and reaping, okay? So the law of repetition even talks about that, which I'll talk about secondly. Now, here's the law of repulsion, or the law of to repel, okay? Says refers to the principle means first the law, that like charges or similar energies repel each other. Okay, physics, right, or metaphysics. You can't really see it. Okay, what do you mean, Tyreek? Well, it's very simple. You should have paid attention in science class. Yeah, me too, right? Anyway, so essentially, basically, what it's saying is like a positive and a negative, right? They don't connect. Okay, and I heard opposites attract before, right? Okay. Um, that's a whole nother topic in itself. Okay. And that may be the case in certain things. But let me put it like this. If you tend to gravitate towards people, if you like playing basketball, I would guarantee you most of the time there's people that you hang around or talk to likes basketball, right? If you like basketball and you don't like fishing, and not to say you wouldn't be a friend of that person, but you may not talk to them as much. You know what I'm saying? And the opposite could be true, but just work with me here, okay? But that's the law of repulsion. I'm gonna read it again. Refers to the principle that like charges or similar energies repel each other. Okay, let's say let's say you're going to work and it's a Monday and you're like, and then you got that other person that comes in on Monday and they're like chippy, doing backflips, jumping off the counters. I'm just figurative speaking. They're just pumped up, and sometimes you just want to go, shut up, you just want to kick them, you know what I'm saying? Stuff them in the trash can. Like, what are you being excited about, right? Been there, done that before, right? It's because of this, right? But anyway, so you get what I'm saying. That's the law of repulsion. Let's talk about the law of attraction. Okay, the law of attraction. I'm gonna read that real quick. Means the belief, or is a belief, that positive or negative thoughts bring positive or negative experiences into a person's life. I'm going to read that again. The law of attraction. Okay, that's also mentioned by King Solomon about 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. laws. Okay, the law of attraction is a belief. A belief. So it's a belief system that positive or negative thoughts. You can't see thoughts. The only way you know what I'm thinking is by my words, right? And they're an extension of my thoughts, and they carry energy, they carry sound, okay? And that sound of my words hits your frontal lobe right here, okay? Positive or negative, and paints a picture, okay, of positive or negative, right? Tyreek, man, you talking about empowering me and controlling this and dominating this and going higher. Well, of course. I've never, how do I say this? I've never had anybody say and just run up to me and say, man, I'm just so glad I'm born because my biggest thing in life is to be a failure and to just destroy myself. And oh, yeah, by the way, to destroy others and just lie, cheat, steal, and just run rampant and just do stupid stuff. And that's what I was born for. Never had anybody say that to me. Never heard that before, right? At least somebody in their right mind, okay? But that's a whole nother topic in itself. So the law of attraction is a belief that positive or negative thoughts bring positive or negative experiences into a person's life. So it's like a vibe. People say vibe, that's really real. It's an energy, right? Through their words, right? You ever hear the saying of sunshine? Here comes sunshine. It's called jesting. But what they're saying is that, oh my gosh, this person is so negative. Listen, people don't want to hear about your negative, right? No matter, unless it's something catastrophic, an emergency, hey, the community needs to come together. I understand that. Life be lifing, right? But just generally, because it doesn't help anything. It doesn't help you because it paints bad pictures in you. It repels the law of attraction, right? You send signals, stay away from me, or you're running after people and people are running from you, right? That's why they call that person sunshine. Because they're like, oh my gosh, they're blocking the sunshine. But anyway, and let's see, here's another thing also too. I'm going to read the law of repetition. The law of repetition, okay? The law of repetition, repetition is a fundamental, so a basic principle across psychology, spirituality, and design, emphasizing that repeated exposure to an idea. The world runs off of ideas. You are what you think you are. I am what I think I am based upon the idea of myself. So my question to you is, who fed you that idea of you? How do you know you are what you are right now? Right? How do you know that's the real you? I wanted that to sit there and resonate with you a little bit, to marinate, right? Kind of like Thanksgiving meatballs, turkey meatballs marinating in some teriyaki sauce for about 30 minutes. How do you know that the idea of you is the true you, where you are right now in life in every single area? I can explicitly tell you that where I am right now is not the true me. It's a journey, okay? Not the destination. I'm sure you heard that before. So the repeated exposure to an idea, behavior, or stimulus strengthens its impact and leads to lasting change, permanent change, okay? How would you like to take what you make in a year to make that in 9 months? How would you like to do that? Okay? Think about that. So I'm giving you some principles to do that, okay? All right, so in closing, I went over, let me do a quick recap. So I talked about the king or queen within you, right? Because all of us have that. And when you look up at you should do a little bit of research on kings and queens. Why? Because that's you. right? See, a king and a queen, they dominate a territory, okay? They control a territory, right? When you look at kings and queens, their word is actual law. How would you like to get to a certain point in life where you've learned to put the right stuff in your head, cap the negative, right? Cap the negative in every facet of life. You can do that if you choose to do that, right? You don't have to hang around those people that put you down unless you're at work, and then you can do something about that, right? Because that's going to bring your countenance down. That's going to bring it's going to stop you, okay? Now it could motivate you. Yes, that can also happen too. But if you got, especially if it's somebody that's above you, an authoritative figure, I've been there before. We've all been there for the most part somewhere. Or a teacher, maybe you're a student, and I believe all of us are students, right? We're always learning. We should be always learning, right? No one knows it all, okay? So, yeah, we should all be doing that, okay? So, the law of repulsion, okay, right? The law of attraction. Please write this stuff down. The law of repetition. Okay, these are the things that got us where we are right now in life, in all areas, right? That's the problem. We don't want to look at the areas that we are in. I had to write down areas that we're strong in, and here's the kicker: write down areas that you're weak in, right? Be honest. That's the first part, okay? Because if you're not honest with yourself, how are you going to be honest with somebody else? Matter of fact, that's the first element of the 8 elements of a contract is honesty, right? Honesty with oneself, because you can't give what you haven't got, and you're going to be honest with somebody else, okay? Anyway, that's a whole nother topic in itself. That should be paramount, okay? Okay, so that's it, guys, with those 3 things. Again, if you're new in here, thank you for joining me. Please subscribe. Please, I did say I was going to be on Instagram, but it looks like someone way up there decided that you need about 1,000 followers. So you can still take that link, guys, my Instagram link. Please go ahead and follow me there. I'm trying to obviously get to 1,000 so I can help more people. Okay, I'm pumped up about this year. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. Yes, there are some things that are going to come, and it's going to affect all of us in some way, shape, or form, financially. I mean, you name it, right? But how would you like to be able to get to a certain point in life? I'm not at that point yet, but in certain areas, I'm developing some spiritual muscles, so to speak, mental muscles, right, in that area, to where I know certain laws where I don't have to look up in a book, right? It's already inside me. I am the book, okay? So you need to get to that certain point, okay, where the laws are actually in here. So when something comes up, bam, you know exactly what to do, right? You don't have to, if you need a fly swatter, right, and that fly is just bothering the heck out of you, right? You don't want to have to go look for a newspaper or go to the store and drive a mile up the road, go pay for a fly swatter, come all the way back, and then try to find a fly, right? You want to already have the fly swatter already in hand, okay? So when the problem presents itself, you already have the solution. Hopefully that makes sense. But so all right, guys, you guys have a great week. I may hop on here during the week. Sometimes I like doing that and imparting some wisdom that I learned from some of these beautiful people from my past. And I learned from all different types of people, man. It doesn't matter whether they make more money than me or not. I'm always trying to just pick people's brain, because it can always help me out in some way, because I can help other people out. Okay. The problem is today is that, when I was growing up, I remember that for the most part, or for some part, I think that was when it just started changing. Um, Probably maybe like in the 60s, towards the late 60s and everything, 70s, but back then people would look out for each other, right? It takes a village to raise, right, a child. right? Today it's, some people don't even know their next door neighbor. And if they do, it may take them 6 months to a year, you know. We become more selfish. We become more focused on us, you know. And no wonder a lot of people don't have joy because it doesn't work like that. There's another law in there, and I'm not going to get into that. But when you serve somebody else, not be a doormat, but when you take your gift, listen to me now, when you take your leadership gift, everybody's a leader, trapped in a follower, but you take your servant gift and you bless somebody else with, or not bless, but you favor somebody else, you give pleasure to somebody else, right? Um, and you help them out, you help them solve a problem. Guess what? Your gift, you increase your value because now they're saying, now I know that I can go to that person, and guess what? You increase your value, money what follows. A lot of times people take out something or they'll give you something, they'll barter something with you. So I just dropped a hint, a big time hint with that with you. You said, well, I don't have a job. Doesn't matter. Find something that you already have, right? And whatever gift that you already have, and help somebody else out. And I guarantee you, there's another law in that, the law of sowing and reaping. What you do for somebody else, somebody's eventually going to end up doing to you, especially if you have a great attitude. Okay, so you guys have a great night, great week. Maybe on here towards the end of the week, I'm not sure. But next week, I'm going to get a little bit further into this book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and start continuing. You are what you think you are, okay? Because that's the most important thing. How you see yourself is how you see the world, okay? And as I said before, think about that question. The idea that you have of yourself right now, guys, you should write that down in large letters. There's something psychologically, when you write down, whether it be a pencil or a pen on a piece of paper, something about that paper, not that tablet, not that phone, but you write it down, it connects, and you ask yourself, and you'll think about that through the week. Think about that. The idea that I have of myself right now, is that the true idea? Is that my true identity? Have a good night.